The Miranova estate shimmered like something torn from a luxury ad stream. Walls of glass veined with silver circuits, balconies wrapped in bioluminescent ivy, drones weaving silently through the air to keep the air perfumed with lavender molecules. Inside, every corner gleamed with wealth so curated it felt theatrical. Crystal surfaces pulsing with holographic menus, wine bottles tagged with QR Lux seals of origin, chandeliers dangling threads of programmable light. Tonight was not just dinner, it was a performance. At the head of it all was Helena Miranova, mother, matriarch, judge, and executioner rolled into one. She wore a gown that flickered faint gold whenever someone looked directly at her, the kind of augmented fabric only billionaires or politicians used. Her eyes, sharpened by decades of command, scanned the long obsidian dining table as if the guests were soldiers, not family. Main character, Lena, sat halfway down the table, between her husband Victor and his younger sister Alina. She'd chosen a simple black dress, elegant but not enhanced with holographic flourishes. Compared to the others, who shimmered with neon-threaded suits and dresses projecting personal branding hashtags above their shoulders, Lena looked almost understated, invisible. Invisible was exactly how Helena preferred her. The table was set with perfection. Steaks sizzling on smart-heated plates, desserts gleaming beneath domes that displayed calorie counts in elegant fonts, wine glasses refilling themselves at micro-gestures. Every movement felt choreographed, every laugh a little too sharp, every compliment tinged with competition. Family dinners here were less about food and more about dominance. Helena began with a toast. To family, to legacy, and to those who carry the Miranova name with honor. Glasses lifted. Lena raised hers too, though the words lodged sharp in her chest. She didn't carry the Miranova name, not really. She had married into it, and Helena never let her forget it. As plates circulated, the smart trays hovering with perfect precision, Lena waited for hers. One by one, steaks landed in front of each family member: Victor, Alina, Uncle Sergei, cousin Marika, even Helena's business associate who had been invited at the last moment. The sizzling aroma of peppered meat filled the air. And then, nothing. The tray skipped her as if she weren't there, gliding past to deliver the last steak to Helena herself. Lena stared at the empty space in front of her. The table buzzed with low conversation, forks scraping, knives slicing through juicy slabs. For a moment, no one noticed. Or maybe they all noticed, and no one dared to say anything. Finally, Helena gave a silken laugh. "Oh dear, it seems the system has made a mistake." Her tone made it clear. It was no mistake. Alina smirked, eyes sliding toward Lena. Victor cleared his throat, but said nothing, his attention pinned to his plate like a coward's shield. Lena smiled faintly, lifted her glass of water, and sipped as though it were champagne. She would not give Helena the satisfaction of flinching. Inside, though, her stomach twisted. The smell of charred beef, the glitter of molten butter, the sight of juices pooling on every plate but hers, it all drove home her place. Outsider, undeserving, decorative at best. Helena went on chatting, describing her latest investment in orbital farms as though nothing had happened. Others joined in, eager to bask in her attention. The humiliation hung in the air like static. Desserts came next, glossy slices of triple layer cake, topped with holographic sugar butterflies that fluttered before dissolving on the tongue. Each plate landed with a soft click in front of every family member. Again, the tray glided past Lena without stopping. The laughter this time was less awkward, more complicit. A few chuckles. Even Uncle Sergei, usually harmless, muttered, "Must be cutting back, eh?" Lena inhaled slowly, steady. She let her fingers rest lightly on the table, nails tapping once against the obsidian. Tap. A small sound, but to her it was grounding. Don't react, don't give them what they want. The humiliation cut deep, but she folded it inward, letting it settle like a coal waiting for air. Then, the doorbell. It chimed not with a ding, but with a smooth digital cascade, and every head turned. Helena frowned, clearly not expecting anyone. The doors slid open to reveal a man Lena had never met. Tall, broad-shouldered, his suit woven with sleek threads of dark chrome that caught the light in shifting patterns. He carried himself not like a guest, but like someone entirely at home. "Ah," Helena said, recovering with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Family, allow me to introduce Alexei, Victor's cousin, recently returned from the Mars colonies." The air shifted, conversations paused, new energy poured into the room.
Alexei took a seat directly across from Lena. His eyes, bright and unsettlingly amused, lingered on her longer than courtesy required. The table resumed its chatter, but Lena felt the burn of his gaze, a silent acknowledgement that he had noticed everything: her empty plate, her still full glass, the cruel choreography of exclusion. And then, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, he leaned forward, lips curving into a sly smile. "Strange," he said, voice warm enough to carry but sharp enough to cut. "The most radiant woman at the table is the only one without a plate. Is this a new diet trend? Or perhaps just jealousy at work?" The room froze. Forks stopped mid-air. Wine glasses stilled. Helena's smile hardened. Victor's jaw clenched. And Lena. Lena lifted her chin, her lips curving in the faintest of smiles. "Don't worry," she said smoothly, her voice low but steady. "I've already feasted. Success tastes far better than steak." The words slid out like silk, effortless, though her pulse hammered beneath her calm surface. A few beats of silence stretched. Then Alexei chuckled, raised his glass toward her, and drank. For the first time all evening, eyes turned toward Lena not with dismissal, but with curiosity. And she sat straighter, the humiliation cooling into something sharper, steadier. The performance had shifted. The night was no longer Helena's alone. The dinner carried on, but it was no longer smooth theatre. After Alexei's remark, the air was heavier, charged. Helena forced her laugh a little too loudly, as though to reset the mood, but every attempt to redirect fell short. A crack had opened in her perfect choreography, and everyone felt it. Lena, still without food, found herself suddenly visible. Not admired, yet, but noticed. And in this family, being noticed was dangerous, like stepping into the open during a storm. Helena tried to clamp down. "Alexei," she purred, "your time on Mars must have left you with a peculiar sense of humour. Here, we value tradition." He raised his glass lazily. "Tradition? I thought we valued truth, but perhaps I've been gone too long." Forks scraped. Tension rippled. Even Victor shifted uncomfortably. Lena kept her eyes on her water, though she could feel Alexei watching her again. A warmth spread low in her chest. Not attraction, not yet, but the sharp relief of someone daring to speak aloud what everyone else swallowed. She didn't need saving, but the gesture had punctured Helena's careful cruelty. That alone made her breathe easier. The conversation stumbled back into safer channels: business ventures, stock movements, orbital agriculture yields. Helena orchestrated with forced elegance, but every few minutes Alexei dropped another remark, playful but edged. And each time, Lena's gaze flicked to him before she caught herself. When the servers brought wine pairings, smart glasses that adjusted flavor profiles to match genetic taste markers, one glass slid past Lena again. Empty space, once more. The laughter was softer this time, more awkward, as though the cruelty was losing its shine. Alexei leaned forward, resting his elbow on the obsidian table, his smile lazy, calculated. "Perhaps," he mused loudly enough for all to hear, "Lena doesn't drink because she doesn't need enhancement. Some of us require filters and algorithms to taste sweetness. Others, they carry it naturally." The words landed like sparks. Lena's breath caught. Heat rose up her neck, though her face remained composed. She tilted her head, allowed the smallest curve of lips. "Careful, cousin. Compliments at this table are more dangerous than knives." A ripple of laughter, not cruel this time, but genuine, spread around the table. Even Uncle Sergei chuckled, nodding as though approving her quickness. Helena's eyes narrowed. "Wit is a cheap currency," she snapped. Lena turned her gaze on her mother-in-law, calm, even warm. "Only when it's counterfeit." The table stilled again. Helena's nostrils flared, but she couldn't strike without looking petty. For once the power slipped from her grasp. Victor glanced at Lena, startled, proud even, but said nothing. Always nothing. Alina crossed her arms, glaring. "Since when do you spar, Lena?" "I thought you preferred silence." Lena met her gaze directly. "Silence teaches one to listen, and listening, Alina, makes sparring much easier." Another ripple of laughter, this time admiration. For years, Lena had kept her achievements quiet, her voice muted in this house. She hadn't needed to prove herself to them, but now, cornered, she realized she had ammunition. Things she'd never flaunted because they weren't her style. Tonight, though, might be the time. So when Alexei leaned closer, conspiratorial, and asked, "And what exactly fills your plate when they forget to serve you?" She let herself answer. "Work," she said. "A promotion last quarter, leading a project on adaptive AI for orbital farms, recognition from the Ministry of Innovation." The words were plain, simple, but they dropped like stones into still water. Helena blinked. Alina's smirk faltered. Even Victor's fork paused mid-air. Lena continued lightly, as though she were commenting on the weather. "It's not glamorous, but it feeds more than one table." Silence. Then a murmur of admiration, Uncle Sergei muttering, "Impressive," Marika nodding. "I saw that in the streams." "That was you." Lena only smiled. And just like that, the dynamic shifted. Where she had been invisible, she now drew attention like a flame. Alexei raised his glass toward her again, eyes glinting. "To success that tastes better than steak." Others followed. Glasses lifted. A toast in her name, unplanned, uninvited, but undeniable. Helena sat stiff, lips pressed thin, trying to reel back control. But the night had slipped, and Lena, for the first time in this house, felt not diminished, but seen. The dessert round arrived like a ritual. Sleek drones glided silently into the dining hall, their trays gleaming under the chandelier's crystalline glow. Each plate descended with precise elegance. Velvet chocolate cake topped with silver-dusted cream. Forks were raised, murmurs of appreciation floated around the table. And yet, Eleanor's place remained bare. She noticed the hesitation of the drone, the way its sensors scanned her biometric ID, and then deliberately moved on. Someone had programmed the exclusion. It wasn't an accident, it was a statement. Her stomach tightened, but her face remained serene. She lifted her glass of sparkling water, sipping as though it was champagne. The matriarch, Lady Marceline, her mother-in-law, smiled with feigned innocence. "Oh, Eleanor, dear, it seems the system has glitched again. No dessert for you. How curious." Laughter rippled around the table, thin and uncomfortable. Cousins averted their eyes, uncles busied themselves with slicing into their cake. Eleanor set her glass down carefully, her movements controlled, deliberate. She said nothing. Across the table, however, Lysander, her husband's cousin, tall, broad-shouldered, with a dangerous ease in his posture, watched closely. His eyes narrowed. And then, without hesitation, he slid his untouched plate of cake across the table until it rested in front of her. The sound of porcelain scraping against glass rang through the silence. "Seems the algorithm only serves those it deems worthy," Lysander said, his tone playful but cutting. "But I've never trusted algorithms. They fail to recognize true value when it's right in front of them." The matriarch's smile faltered. "That's very gallant, Lysander, but Elena doesn't really—" "Oh, but I do," Elena interrupted gently, her voice soft but edged with steel. She lifted the fork, pierced the cake, and took a slow, deliberate bite. Her expression remained calm, almost amused. The act was simple, but the symbolism thundered through the room. Uncle Marlowe cleared his throat, chuckling nervously. Well, that was bold. Lysander lifted his glass toward her. To bold women. Eleanor allowed the smallest of smiles to curve her lips, tilting her glass in acknowledgement. Inside, her pulse surged, part adrenaline, part satisfaction. Marceline set her fork down with controlled force. Boldness is nothing without substance. Isn't that right, Elena? Elena leaned forward slightly, her voice conversational but precise. Substance speaks for itself. For example, my department's orbital habitat project was just approved for interplanetary distribution. 12 cities signed contracts this quarter alone. The words dropped like a stone into still water. Forks paused, chairs shifted. Even her husband's brows rose in surprise. Aunt Seraphine blinked, adjusting her glowing earrings. I hadn't heard about that. That's because I don't broadcast every step, Eleanor replied smoothly. I prefer results over noise. Lysander's grin deepened, eyes locked on her with open admiration. Now that, he murmured, is substance. Cousin Ilias leaned forward, smirking. So what exactly do you do, Eleanor? Besides, sitting at fancy dinners. It was meant to humiliate, but Elena tilted her head calmly. Besides dinners, last month I finalized the atmospheric dome designs for Callisto Station. Without them, 2,000 families wouldn't have breathable air. That's something, wouldn't you say? The silence was heavy. Even those who mocked her lowered their eyes. Marceline's knuckles whitened around her glass. Designing domes is hardly the same as building legacy, she said, sharp. Eleanor's eyes glinted. Legacy is built by those who make survival possible, not by those who merely claim credit for it. The jab was quiet, but it struck deep. Lysander chuckled, leaning back with infuriating ease. She makes a fair point, Aunt. You can't breathe pedigree. The younger cousins burst into laughter. Gasps followed. Marceline's lips pressed into a thin line. You've always been reckless, Lysander. And you've always underestimated trouble, he replied smoothly, raising his glass toward Elena again. Their eyes met. A spark flared, unspoken, undeniable. Eleanor arched her brows slightly, the smallest smirk tugging at her lips. It was enough to set whispers buzzing across the table. When the murmurs faded, Eleanor placed her fork neatly beside the plate. Her hands folded, posture straight. Her gaze swept the table, unhurried, steady. True value, she said, her voice low but carrying, isn't measured by what's on your plate, but by what you bring to the table. The silence that followed was profound. Then a younger cousin clapped softly, another raised a glass. Soon the gesture rippled through the room. Even her husband, caught between loyalty and awe, lifted his drink toward her. Finally, Lysander's voice cut through, confident and bright. To what Eleanor brings to the table. The toast echoed, glasses clinked, and though Marceline's smile remained fixed like porcelain, the balance of power had shifted forever. Eleanor hadn't shouted, she hadn't fought. Her revenge was silent, dignified, unassailable.